The first sign something was wrong came at 3 in the morning when Brooke's phone buzzed against our nightstand like an angry wasp. I'd been awake anyway. 12-hour shifts in Denver General's ER have a way of rewiring your sleep schedule until you're basically a vampire with a nursing degree. I'm Andrew Collins, 39 years old, and I spend my days keeping people from dying. You'd think that would give me some insight into keeping relationships alive, but apparently my expertise doesn't extend beyond medical emergencies. Case in point, the woman lying next to me, pretending to sleep while her phone lit up our bedroom like a disco ball. "Brooke," I whispered. Nothing. The phone buzzed again. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My girlfriend of 2 years had always been a heavy sleeper, but lately she'd developed this supernatural ability to hear her phone from 3 rooms away during the day, yet somehow miss it completely when it rang at night. Convenient. I reached over her. She smelled like that expensive perfume she'd started wearing recently, the one that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and glanced at the screen. The name Tyler glowed back at me. Tyler Ray, her ex-boyfriend, the gambling addict with the charm of a used car salesman and the financial responsibility of a lottery winner. "Emergency?" I asked the darkness. Brooke stirred, suddenly awake. "What? Oh, probably just work stuff." Work stuff, at 3 a.m., from Tyler. I've seen enough lies in my career to recognize one. When someone comes into the ER claiming they fell downstairs but has knuckle marks on their throat, you learn to read between the lines. When your girlfriend of 2 years starts getting mysterious late-night texts from her gambling addict ex, you start reading between those lines too. "Since when does Tyler work in digital marketing?" I asked. She sat up, running her hands through her blonde hair, the kind of blonde that comes from a salon, not genetics. "He doesn't. It's complicated." Complicated. The relationship status of choice for people doing things they shouldn't be doing. I rolled out of bed and walked to the kitchen of our upscale downtown apartment. The place had been my idea. Close to the hospital, great view of the mountains, expensive enough to make me feel like I was finally making it in the world. Now it just felt like an overpriced stage for whatever drama Brooke was directing. The coffee maker gurgled to life. 4 a.m. coffee tastes like regret, but it was better than lying in bed pretending I didn't know what was happening. My phone rang. Work. "Collins," I answered. "Andy, we need you in early. Multi-car accident on I-25, and Jenkins called in sick." That was Sarah Martinez, our charge nurse. She sounded tired, which meant it was going to be a long day. "Give me 30 minutes. You're a lifesaver." If only it were that simple. I showered, dressed, and grabbed my keys. Brooke was back in bed, phone face down on the nightstand. The picture of innocence. If innocence wore Victoria's Secret and had mysterious text conversations at 3 in the morning. "Emergency call," I said. "I'll be home late." "Okay," she mumbled into her pillow. "Love you." The words felt hollow, like when patients tell you they're fine while bleeding from their ears. Denver General at 4:30 a.m. is a special kind of chaos. The overnight crowd, drunks, addicts, people who've made spectacularly bad decisions, mingles with the early morning emergencies. Car accidents, heart attacks, the occasional construction worker who's had an intimate encounter with power tools. "What do we have?" I asked Sarah as I tied my scrubs. 3-car pileup, 2 critical, 1 walking wounded. The criticals are coming to you. I love my job. There's something pure about emergency medicine. No politics, no long-term relationship management, just immediate problems requiring immediate solutions. Someone's bleeding, you stop the bleeding. Someone's not breathing, you help them breathe. Simple, if only personal relationships worked the same way. The first ambulance arrived with sirens wailing. A middle-aged man, conscious but with obvious internal injuries. His wife rode along, holding his hand and crying. "How long have you been married?" I asked her as we worked on her husband. 32 years, she said. We were coming home from our anniversary dinner. 32 years. I couldn't imagine being with someone that long, trusting them that completely. Brooke and I had been together for 2 years, and I was already questioning whether she was telling me the truth about what she had for lunch. The man stabilized. His wife kissed his forehead and whispered something in his ear that made him smile despite the pain. That's what love looked like, not mysterious midnight texts and complicated explanations. My break came at 8 a.m. I sat in the hospital cafeteria, staring at a cup of coffee that could strip paint, and called my best friend Anita. Anita Rodriguez worked in pediatric ICU and had the uncanny ability to see through bullshit at 50 yards. She'd been telling me for months that something was off about Brooke. "You sound like hell," she said by way of greeting. "Brooke's getting texts from Tyler at 3 in the morning. Silence. Then, "The gambling addict Tyler? The one who owes money to half of Denver? That's the one. Andy, you know what this is, right?" I did know. I just didn't want to admit it. "Maybe it's nothing. And maybe I'm the Queen of England. When was the last time you checked your bank accounts?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. When was the last time I'd checked? Brooke handled most of our finances. She was better with numbers, she said, more organized. I just deposited my paychecks and trusted her to handle the rest. "I have to go," I said. "Andy, check the accounts. Today." I hung up and immediately opened my banking app. Checking account, normal. Savings account, normal. Joint account we used for shared expenses, down by $3,000. $3,000, gone. I scrolled through the transactions. Grocery stores, gas stations, normal stuff. Then, buried among the legitimate expenses, wire transfer to Tyler Ray, $500. Another wire transfer, $700. Another. My hands were shaking. In the ER, I could handle anything: compound fractures, cardiac arrest, gunshot wounds. But seeing my girlfriend systematically draining our joint account to fund her ex-boyfriend's gambling addiction, that was a different kind of emergency. I called the bank. "Mr. Collins?" "Yes, I can help you with those transactions. It looks like they were all authorized by the secondary account holder, Brooke Lawson. Is there a problem?" "I need to remove her access to the account, immediately." "I can certainly help you with that. You'll need to come in and sign some paperwork. I'll be there in an hour." I finished my shift in a haze. Every patient reminded me of my situation. A woman whose husband had been stealing her prescription medications, a man whose business partner had been embezzling funds, a teenager whose best friend had been spreading rumors about her online. Betrayal was a common injury in the ER. We just usually couldn't treat it with bandages and painkillers. At 2 p.m., I sat in the bank manager's office, signing forms to remove Brooke's access to our joint account. The manager, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, looked sympathetic. "I'm sorry you're going through this," she said. "Unfortunately, we see it more often than we'd like." "How much total?" I asked. She checked her computer. "Over the past 3 months, approximately $8,000 in wire transfers to Tyler Ray. $8,000. Money I'd earned working double shifts, dealing with drunks and drug addicts, and people who thought the emergency room was their personal concierge service." I drove home in silence, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? What else didn't I know? Was she sleeping with him too, or was I just the convenient ATM funding their reunion? Our apartment felt different when I walked in. The expensive furniture, the artwork Brooke had insisted we needed, the designer throw pillows that cost more than some people's rent. It all looked like evidence of financial irresponsibility now. Brooke was in the kitchen, making dinner. She looked up and smiled when I walked in. The same smile that had charmed me 2 years ago when we met at a hospital charity event. "How was work?" she asked, stirring something that smelled like garlic and herbs. "Interesting," I said. "I learned something new today." "Oh? What's that?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the banking app, the list of wire transfers to Tyler clearly visible. Her face went white. The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. "Andrew, I can explain." $8,000, Brooke. $8,000 to your gambling addict ex-boyfriend. Please, explain that." She sat down hard in one of our overpriced dining chairs. For a moment, she looked genuinely scared, and I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the 3 a.m. texts, and the feeling passed. "Tyler's in trouble," she said finally. "Real trouble. He owes money to some dangerous people." "And that's our problem, how?" "They threatened to hurt him, Andy. Really hurt him. I couldn't just let that happen." I stared at her. "So you stole from me to save your ex-boyfriend from his own bad decisions?" "I didn't steal. It's our joint account. I was going to pay it back." "With what money? Your digital marketing job barely covers your car payment and shopping habits." That hit home. Brooke's face flushed red. "I work hard at that job." "Not hard enough to save your ex-boyfriend without robbing your current boyfriend." We stood there in our expensive kitchen, the smell of burning garlic filling the air, staring at each other across a chasm that had opened up in the space of 5 minutes. "What do you want me to do?" she asked finally. "I want you to call Tyler and tell him the ATM is closed. I want you to get my money back. And I want you to explain why I shouldn't pack your bags right now." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "Andy, please. I love you. This was just... I was trying to help someone." By lying to me for 3 months? I knew you wouldn't understand. She was right about that. I didn't understand how someone could systematically betray the person they claimed to love. I didn't understand how helping someone meant stealing from someone else. I didn't understand how the woman I'd been planning to propose to could look me in the eye every day while funding her ex-boyfriend's gambling addiction. My phone buzzed. Text message from Tyler. Tell Brooke I need another 1,000 by Friday. Things are getting serious. I showed her the screen. Things are about to get serious, all right. The next morning, I woke up alone. Brooke's side of the bed was cold, and her car was gone from the parking garage. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to fix this. Please don't do anything rash. I love you. B. Too late for that advice. I'd already done something rash. I'd trusted her. I called in sick to work, something I'd done maybe 3 times in 5 years. Sarah sounded concerned. You never call in sick. Are you dying? Something like that. I spent the morning at the bank, moving money around, closing the joint account, opening new ones that only I could access. Patricia, the bank manager, walked me through the process with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. We can also flag your accounts for suspicious activity, she offered, if anyone tries to open credit cards or loans using your information. Do it. By noon, I'd effectively cut Brooke off from my finances. It felt like performing surgery on my own life, necessary but painful. My phone rang as I was leaving the bank. Unknown number. Is this Andrew Collins? Who's asking? This is Jake Morrison. I think we need to talk about Brooke Lawson. Jake Morrison. The name was familiar, but I couldn't place it. I'm sorry. Do I know you? We met at Tom and Jennifer's barbecue last summer. I'm Jennifer's brother. Tom and Jennifer Walsh were mutual friends of Brooke and me. Their summer barbecue was an annual tradition, a gathering of Denver's young professional crowd. Jake was a financial advisor, I remembered now. Tall, serious, the kind of guy who wore suits to casual events. What about Brooke? I asked. Can we meet somewhere? This isn't really a phone conversation. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. Jake was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a laptop and a manila folder. He looked like he hadn't slept well. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. This is awkward as hell, but I figured you should know. He opened the folder and pulled out several printed emails. Brooke approached me 6 weeks ago about a personal loan, said you were having some financial difficulties and needed help. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of difficulties? Gambling debts. She said you developed a serious problem and were too proud to ask for help yourself. She wanted to borrow $15,000 to pay off your creditors before things got violent. The coffee shop suddenly felt too hot. And you believed her? She was very convincing, had details about your work schedule, your income, even knew about your brother Mason's problems with alcohol. It all seemed legitimate. Mason. My older brother, an ex-cop who'd struggled with drinking after a bad shooting incident. Very few people knew about that. But you didn't give her the money? Jake shook his head. Something felt off. She was too eager, too desperate. And when I asked to speak with you directly, she got defensive, said you were too embarrassed to discuss it. He pulled out another document. So I did some checking, called a few people, discreetly. Turns out Brooke's been telling this story to a lot of our mutual friends. What do you mean? Tom and Jennifer lent her $3,000 last month. Same story. Your gambling debts, dangerous creditors. Mike Stevens from the hospital gave her $1,500. Sarah Chen from your nursing program gave her $800. The room was spinning. How many people? Jake consulted his notes. At least 8 that I could confirm, probably more. We're talking about $25,000 to $30,000, Andy. I couldn't speak. The woman I'd been living with, sleeping next to, planning a future with, had been systematically defrauding our friends, using my name, my reputation. There's more, Jake said gently. She's been telling people that you're abusive when you drink, that she's scared of you but doesn't want to leave because you've threatened her. The coffee shop noise faded to white static. Abusive? She showed up at Tom and Jennifer's house last week with a bruise on her arm, said you'd grabbed her during an argument about money. I've never hit a woman in my life, never even raised my voice to Brooke during an argument. The accusation felt like a physical blow. Jake, I need you to know. I know, he interrupted. I've known you for 3 years, Andy. You're not that guy. That's why I'm here. He slid a business card across the table. This is a lawyer friend of mine. Specializes in fraud cases. You're going to need him. I drove home in a daze, Jake's folder on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to explode. $25,000 to $30,000. 8 different friends, all of them thinking I was a gambling addict and an abuser. My phone was ringing constantly now. Word was getting out. "Andy, it's Tom Walsh. We need to talk." "Andy, this is Mike Stevens. What the hell is going on?" "Andrew, it's Sarah Chen. I'm so disappointed in you." I turned off the phone and sat in my car outside our apartment building, trying to process the magnitude of what Brooke had done. It wasn't just theft, it was character assassination. She'd turned me into a monster in the eyes of people I cared about. The apartment was still empty when I went upstairs. I walked through the rooms, seeing everything differently now. The expensive furniture, the designer clothes in her closet, the jewelry I'd assumed she bought with her own money, all of it paid for with stolen funds and lies. I found her laptop in the bedroom, still logged into her email. I know I shouldn't have looked, but at that point, privacy seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford. The emails painted a picture of systematic deception that was breathtaking in its scope. Messages to Tyler about getting more money from the mark. Conversations with her sister Chelsea about how long she could keep the con going. Plans to disappear once she'd collected enough to pay off Tyler's debts and start fresh somewhere else. But the worst was an email to someone named Rick, dated just 2 days ago. "The boyfriend is getting suspicious. Might need to accelerate the timeline. How much do we need for the new identities?" New identities. She wasn't just planning to leave me, she was planning to disappear entirely, taking my money and my reputation with her. I printed everything, every email, every bank transfer, every lie she'd told to every friend. By the time I was done, I had a stack of evidence 3 inches thick. My phone buzzed. Text from Brooke. "At Tyler's. Working on getting your money back. Don't hate me, please." I almost laughed. Don't hate her? She'd stolen $30,000, destroyed my reputation, and was planning to disappear with a new identity. Hate was just the starting point. I called Jake's lawyer friend. "Mr. Collins? Jake Morrison said you might be calling. How bad is it?" I told him everything. The theft, the lies to our friends, the abuse allegations, the emails about new identities. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "This is extensive," he said finally. "The good news is you have excellent documentation. The bad news is that some of this damage might be permanent. People believe what they want to believe, and if your friends think you're an abuser, evidence might not change their minds." "What are my options?" "Criminally, she's committed multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. We can pursue that. Civilly, we can sue for damages, including harm to your reputation. But Mr. Collins, I have to ask, what do you really want here?" What did I want? I wanted my money back. I wanted my reputation restored. I wanted the woman I'd loved to have never existed. But most of all, I wanted everyone who'd believed her lies to understand exactly who Brooke Lawson really was. "I want justice," I said. "Justice is expensive and slow. Revenge is faster and more satisfying." "Are you suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything illegal. But sometimes the court of public opinion moves faster than the legal system. Just saying." I hung up and sat in the silence of my violated apartment, thinking about the lawyer's words. Justice versus revenge. Legal remedies versus public humiliation. My phone rang. Tom Walsh. "Andy, I just got off the phone with Jake Morrison. Jesus Christ, man. We had no idea." She was very convincing. "We feel like idiots. Jennifer's been crying all morning. We actually believed that you had—" "I know what you believed. What can we do? How can we fix this?" That was the question, wasn't it? How do you fix a reputation that's been systematically destroyed? How do you repair trust that's been shattered by someone you loved? "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm working on it." After Tom hung up, I opened my laptop and started typing. If Brooke wanted to play games with people's perceptions, I could play that game too. But I had something she didn't, the truth, and I was very, very good at documentation. The next morning brought a knock on my door at 7 a.m. I opened it to find Brooke standing in the hallway, looking like she hadn't slept. Her makeup was smeared, her clothes wrinkled, and she was carrying a duffel bag. "Tyler's gone," she said without preamble. "Gone where?" "Just gone. Disappeared in the middle of the night. With the money." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "What money?" "The money I gave him. All of it. He was supposed to pay off his debts, but instead he just left." She started crying. "Andy, I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but I was trying to help him. By stealing from me and lying to our friends. I was going to pay it all back. I had a plan." "What plan? The new identity plan? The disappearing act?" Her face went white. "You read my emails." Your laptop was open, and yes, I read about Rick and the fake IDs and your exit strategy. Very thorough. She collapsed against the door frame. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Brooke? You steal my money, destroy my reputation, and then vanish into the night? Was there a version of this where I didn't get screwed? I was going to leave you a note, explaining everything. A note. After 2 years together, after stealing $30,000 and turning our friends against me, she was going to leave me a note. Get out, I said. Andy, please. I have nowhere to go. Tyler took everything. That's not my problem anymore. But I love you. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Once they would have meant everything to me. Now they just sounded like another lie. No, you don't. You love what I represented. Financial security, a place to live, someone to blame when your schemes went wrong. But you don't love me. I closed the door and locked it. She pounded on it for a few minutes, pleading and crying, but eventually the hallway went quiet. My phone was ringing again. It had been ringing constantly since Jake's revelations yesterday. Some calls were supportive, friends who'd figured out they'd been conned, others were hostile, people who still believed Brooke's version of events. The worst call came from my brother Mason. Andy, what the hell's going on? I just got a call from some guy named Mike Stevens asking about your gambling problem. Mason lived in Colorado Springs, about an hour south of Denver. We weren't close. His drinking had strained our relationship, but he was still family. It's complicated. Complicated how? Do you have a gambling problem or not? I explained the situation. Mason listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That snake, he said finally. Mason. No, Andy. That's what she is. I know snakes. I was married to one for 8 years. This Brooke woman, she's a professional. This isn't her first time. What do you mean? Think about it. She knew exactly which buttons to push, exactly which stories would work on which people. She had contingency plans, exit strategies, fake identities lined up. You don't develop those skills overnight. He was right. The scope and sophistication of Brooke's con suggested experience. This wasn't a desperate woman making bad decisions. This was a predator who'd done this before. Have you Googled her? Mason asked. I hadn't. In 2 years of dating, I'd never thought to do a deep background check on my girlfriend. Why would I? Do it, Mason said. And Andy, when you find out what I think you're going to find out, call me back. We need to talk about what comes next. I hung up and opened my laptop. Brooke Lawson Denver returned the usual social media profiles and a few mentions in connection with her job. But Brooke Lawson Fraud returned something interesting. A news article from Phoenix dated 3 years ago. Local woman arrested in romance scam. The photo showed a blonde woman who looked remarkably like Brooke, but the name was different, Brooke Lawton. I kept digging. Brooke Lawton had been arrested for bilking 3 different men out of a total of $45,000. She told each of them that she was in an abusive relationship and needed money to escape. She'd been sentenced to 2 years probation and ordered to pay restitution. Brooke Lawson, Brooke Lawton, close enough to keep the same monogrammed luggage. I found 2 more articles, one from Albuquerque, one from Salt Lake City. Different names each time, but the same face, the same scam. Abusive relationships, dangerous creditors, desperate need for money, always targeting men with stable jobs and good hearts. I was just her latest mark. My phone rang. Mason. Found something, didn't you? She's done this before. Multiple times. Figured as much. Here's what we're going to do. Mason's plan was simple and brutal. We were going to expose Brooke for what she really was, to everyone she'd conned and everyone she might con in the future. Not through the slow process of criminal courts, but through the fast, efficient medium of social media. You're talking about destroying her life, I said. She destroyed yours first. And she was planning to disappear anyway, right? We're just accelerating her timeline. I thought about the friends who wouldn't return my calls, the colleagues who looked at me differently now, the woman I'd loved who turned out to be a professional criminal. What do you need me to do? Document everything. Every lie, every theft, every person she conned. Make it bulletproof. Then we're going to tell the world exactly who Brooke Lawson really is. I spent the rest of the day building a comprehensive case file, bank records showing the thefts, emails revealing her plans, screenshots of her dating profiles from other cities under different names, police reports from her previous arrests, statements from the friends she'd defrauded. By evening, I had assembled a digital dossier that painted a picture of a serial con artist who specialized in targeting good men with elaborate sob stories. It was devastating and thorough and completely true. My doorbell rang at 9 p.m. Through the peephole, I could see Brooke standing in the hallway again, this time with her sister, Chelsea. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "Andy, please," Brooke said. "Just hear me out. I think I've heard enough." Chelsea stepped forward. She was younger than Brooke, with the same blonde hair but harder features. "Look, Andy, I know my sister screwed up, but your sister is a professional con artist who's done this in at least 3 other cities. Did you know that, Chelsea?" The look that passed between the sisters told me everything I needed to know. Chelsea was in on it. "That's not," Chelsea started. "Phoenix 2021, Albuquerque 2019, Salt Lake City 2018. Should I keep going?" Brooke started crying again, but this time it looked calculated, performed. "Andy, I was desperate. I made mistakes, but I've changed. You changed me." "No, I didn't. I was just your latest victim." I closed the door and called Mason. "They're here," I said. "Both of them." "Good. That means they're scared. You ready to do this?" I looked at my laptop, the cursor hovering over the publish button on the blog post I'd written. Once I hit that button, there would be no going back. Brooke's life as she knew it would be over. But then I thought about Tom and Jennifer, who'd given her $3,000 they couldn't afford. About Mike Stevens, who'd been working extra shifts to help pay off what he thought were my gambling debts. About Sarah Chen, who'd looked at me with such disappointment when she thought I was an abuser. "I'm ready." I hit publish. The blog post was titled "The Real Brooke Lawson, a warning to good men everywhere." It contained everything: the fake names, the previous arrests, the systematic fraud, the abuse allegations, the planned disappearance. I posted links to it on every social media platform I could think of, tagged every mutual friend we had, and sent it directly to everyone in my contact list. Within an hour, it had been shared dozens of times. Within 2 hours, hundreds. People were commenting, sharing their own stories about Brooke's lies, connecting the dots between her various scams. My phone started ringing. This time, the calls were different. "Andy, it's Tom. Jesus Christ, man, we're so sorry." "Andy, this is Mike Stevens. I can't believe we fell for it." "Andrew, it's Sarah Chen. I owe you a huge apology." The vindication felt good, but it was tempered by sadness. These were good people who'd been manipulated by an expert. Their guilt wasn't necessary, but their support was welcome. At midnight, my doorbell rang again. This time it was just Chelsea, and she looked furious. "You destroyed her," she said when I opened the door. "She destroyed herself, and I just documented it. She's getting serious threats now. People are calling her work, her landlord, everyone she knows." Maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to make a career out of fraud. Chelsea's facade cracked. "You don't understand. She needed that money. We both did." "For what?" "Our mother. She's sick. And the medical bills?" "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime. If your mother is sick, I'm sorry. But that doesn't give you the right to steal from good people." Chelsea stared at me for a moment, then turned and walked away. I never saw her again. The next morning, I woke up to find that my blog post had gone viral. Local news stations were picking up the story. The Denver Post wanted to interview me. Someone had started a Facebook group called Brooke Lawson Victims that already had over 100 members. Brooke's digital marketing company released a statement saying she was no longer employed there. Her apartment complex confirmed she'd been evicted for non-payment of rent. Her social media accounts had been deleted. She had effectively vanished, just as she'd planned. The only difference was that now everyone knew exactly who she was and what she'd done. My phone rang. Mason. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Like justice," I said. "Good, because it's not over yet." Mason was right. It wasn't over. What I'd started as a simple blog post to clear my name had evolved into something much larger. The Brooke Lawson Victims Facebook group was growing by the hour, with people sharing stories from across the country. It turned out that Brooke's 3-city crime spree was just the tip of the iceberg. A woman named Patricia from Las Vegas posted photos of Brooke from 2017, when she'd gone by the name Beth Lawford, and had convinced Patricia's brother to give her $8,000 for cancer treatments. A man from Seattle shared emails from Bridget Lawson, who'd needed money to escape her abusive ex-husband in 2016. The pattern was always the same: a beautiful woman in distress, a compelling sob story, and a good-hearted man willing to help. Brooke had been running this scam for at least 6 years, possibly longer. I was at the hospital trying to focus on work when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Collins, this is Detective Martinez with Denver PD. We'd like to speak with you about Brooke Lawson." The detective was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who met me at the hospital cafeteria during my lunch break. She had a thick file folder and the weary expression of someone who'd seen too much human nature. "Your blog post has generated quite a response," she said. "We've received over 30 complaints about Ms. Lawson in the past 48 hours. 30? And that's just locally. Other jurisdictions are reporting similar numbers. The FBI is getting involved. This appears to be interstate fraud." The magnitude of what Brooke had done was still sinking in. This wasn't just about me, or even about the friends she'd conned in Denver. She was a serial predator who'd left a trail of victims across multiple states. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything you have. Bank records, emails, documentation of the fraudulent statements she made. We're building a case." I spent the next hour walking Detective Martinez through the evidence I'd compiled. She took notes and made copies, occasionally shaking her head in amazement. "In 20 years of police work, I've never seen documentation this thorough," she said. "You should consider a career in law enforcement." "I'll stick to emergency medicine. At least when people lie to me about how they got injured, they're not stealing my money." Detective Martinez laughed grimly. "Fair point. One more thing, Mr. Collins. We have reason to believe Ms. Lawson might try to contact you. If she does, don't engage. Call us immediately." "Why would she contact me? I'm the one who exposed her." "Because you're the only person who really knows her. In her mind, you might be the only one who can help her now." I thought about that as I finished my shift. Did I really know Brooke? I'd lived with her for 2 years, shared a bed with her, made plans for a future together. But the woman I'd loved had been a carefully constructed fiction, designed to extract maximum sympathy and financial support. The real Brooke Lawson was a predator who'd spent years perfecting her craft, leaving a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts across the western United States. My phone buzzed as I was leaving the hospital. Text from an unknown number. "Andy, it's me. Please call. I need to explain. Brooke." Detective Martinez's warning echoed in my head, but curiosity won out. I called the number. "Thank God," she said when she answered. "I was afraid you wouldn't—" "Where are you?" "It doesn't matter. Andy, I need you to take down that blog post. It's destroying my life." "Your life was already destroyed. You destroyed it yourself." "People are threatening me. I can't get a job, can't rent an apartment. Someone threw a brick through my car window." "Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you decided to make a career out of fraud." "It wasn't supposed to be a career." The mask was slipping now, her voice rising. "It was supposed to be temporary, just until I could get back on my feet." "For 6 years?" Silence. Then, "You don't understand what it's like to have nothing, to be desperate." "So you decided to make other people desperate instead?" "I never meant for it to go this far with you. I really did love you, Andy." "No, you didn't. You loved my bank account and my good credit and the fact that I was too trusting to ask hard questions." "That's not true." "Then explain the emails about new identities. Explain the exit strategy. Explain how you were planning to disappear and leave me holding the bag for $30,000 in debt." Another silence. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. "You want to know the truth, Andy? You were boring, predictable. You worked your little job, came home to your little apartment, and never questioned anything. You were the perfect mark." There it was, the real Brooke Lawson, finally showing herself. "And now? Now you've made my life impossible. But here's the thing about impossible situations. They make people desperate, and desperate people do desperate things." The line went silent. I immediately called Detective Martinez and reported the conversation. She sounded concerned. "That sounded like a threat, Mr. Collins. We're going to put a patrol car by your building tonight." "Do you think she's dangerous?" "I think she's cornered, and cornered animals are unpredictable. Be careful." I drove home with my eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror, but I didn't see anything suspicious. The patrol car was already parked outside my building when I arrived, which was reassuring. My phone rang as I was making dinner. Tom Walsh. "Andy, you need to see this." "See what?" "Brooke's fighting back. She's created a new Facebook profile, and she's posting about you, saying you're stalking her, that you made the whole thing up because she broke up with you." I opened Facebook and found the profile Tom was talking about. It was definitely Brooke, but she looked different in the photos. Younger, more innocent. The victim persona cranked up to 11. Her post was a masterpiece of manipulation. "I'm being stalked and harassed by my ex-boyfriend Andrew Collins, who can't accept that our relationship is over. He's created an elaborate fantasy about me being some kind of criminal to justify his obsessive behavior. I'm scared for my safety, and considering leaving the state." It was brilliant, in a sick way. She was trying to flip the narrative, make herself the victim and me the predator. And judging by the comments, some people were buying it. But not everyone. The victims from the Facebook group were responding with their own stories, their own evidence. The truth was harder to suppress when it came from dozens of different sources. My phone rang again. This time it was my brother Mason. "I saw the Facebook post," he said. "She's good. I'll give her that." Some people believe her. Some people believed her the first time, too. But the evidence doesn't lie, Andy. You've got bank records, police reports, testimony from multiple victims across multiple states. She's got a sob story and crocodile tears. So what do? We finish what we started. I've been doing some digging, and I found something interesting. Remember Tyler Ray, the gambling-addict boyfriend? What about him? He didn't disappear. He's in Las Vegas, and he's been posting on social media about his big score, pictures of himself at expensive restaurants, designer clothes, a new Rolex. He's spending the money she stole. Exactly. And he's not being very subtle about it. I think our friend Tyler might be willing to talk if the alternative is a fraud investigation. Mason had tracked Tyler down through his Instagram posts, which showed him living it up at various Las Vegas casinos. For someone who was supposedly in hiding from dangerous creditors, he was being remarkably public about his newfound wealth. "I'm driving to Vegas tomorrow," Mason said. "Want to come along?" The idea of confronting Tyler was appealing, but I had responsibilities. I can't just leave work. "Take a sick day. This is important, Andy. Tyler is the key to proving Brooke's pattern of behavior. Without him, she can claim the whole thing was a misunderstanding." He was right. Tyler was the one person who could definitively prove that Brooke's emergency had been a scam from the beginning. "Okay," I said, "but we do this legally. No vigilante justice." "Wouldn't dream of it. We're just going to have a conversation." The next morning, I called in sick again and met Mason at his apartment in Colorado Springs. He'd printed out dozens of Tyler's social media posts, along with photos of the money transfers from my bank account. "The timeline is perfect," Mason said as we loaded into his truck. She sends him $500 on March 15th. He posts a photo from an expensive steakhouse on March 16th. She sends him $700 on March 22nd. He buys a new watch on March 23rd. You think he'll admit to it? I think he's not as smart as Brooke, and I think he's gotten comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. The drive to Las Vegas took 6 hours, during which Mason filled me in on his research. Tyler Ray was a small-time grifter with a history of minor cons and gambling debts. He'd met Brooke in Phoenix, where they'd apparently worked together on at least 2 scams before moving their operation to Denver. "She was grooming you for months before she made her move," Mason said. "The expensive apartment, the joint bank account, the stories about Tyler being dangerous, all of it was set up for the big con." "How big?" "I think she was planning to take you for everything. Your savings, your credit, maybe even get you to co-sign loans, then disappear and leave you bankrupt." The thought was sobering. If Tyler hadn't gotten greedy and blown their timeline, I might have lost everything. We found Tyler at the Bellagio, playing blackjack at a high-limit table. He was wearing the Rolex from his Instagram posts and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked like he'd gained weight. The good life was agreeing with him. Mason and I watched from a distance as Tyler played. He was betting big and losing bigger, the classic pattern of a gambling addict with access to easy money. "He's going to blow through everything she stole," Mason observed. "Guys like that always do." When Tyler finally left the table, down about $3,000, we followed him to the bar. Mason approached first. "Tyler Ray?" Tyler looked up from his drink, and his face went white when he saw us. "Oh, shit." "Hello, Tyler," I said, taking the seat next to him. "We need to talk." Tyler looked like he was going to run, but Mason had positioned himself to block the most obvious exit. The bar was crowded enough that a scene would draw attention, and Tyler was smart enough to know that wouldn't end well for him. "I don't know what you think you know," Tyler said, but his voice was shaking. "We know everything," I said calmly. "The question is whether you want to help yourself or go down with Brooke." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots Mason had compiled. His Instagram posts matched up perfectly with the dates of Brooke's thefts from my account. "The FBI is involved now, Tyler. Interstate fraud, multiple victims, conspiracy charges. You're looking at serious prison time." That got his attention. Tyler's face went from white to green. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "I mean, I knew she was getting money from you, but she said you were her boyfriend. She said you were helping her help me." "With what?" "My gambling debts. I owed some bad people a lot of money, and Brooke said you wanted to help." It was a thin story, but I could see how Tyler might have convinced himself to believe it. Desperate people are good at rationalization. What about the other cities? Mason asked. Phoenix, Albuquerque, Salt Lake City? Tyler's shoulders sagged. That was different. Those were business arrangements. Business arrangements? Brooke had a system. She'd find lonely guys with good jobs and stable incomes. I'd play the dangerous ex-boyfriend, create urgency. She'd get money to protect herself from me. And you'd split the take? 60-40. She did most of the work. Mason and I exchanged glances. This was better than we'd hoped for. A full confession to a multi-state conspiracy. How many cities? I asked. Tyler thought for a moment. 8, maybe 9. We worked together for about 3 years. Until Denver. Denver was supposed to be the last one. Brooke said she was tired of the life, wanted to go straight. The plan was to take you for everything, then disappear and start fresh somewhere else. With new identities. She had a guy who could set that up. Rick something. Cost $20,000 each, but you'd be completely clean. New names, new social security numbers, the works. I felt sick. They'd been planning to destroy my life so thoroughly that I might never have recovered, financially or emotionally. But you got greedy, Mason said. Tyler nodded miserably. The money was just sitting there, and I had the sure thing at the track. Except it wasn't sure, and I kept doubling down, and before I knew it, I'd blown through everything. So you ran? Brooke was furious. Said I'd ruined everything, that she'd have to improvise. I figured I'd better get out of town before she decided to cut her losses. Mason leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Tyler. You're going to call the FBI and tell them everything you just told us. In exchange, they might be willing to work out a deal. And if I don't? Then you go down with Brooke for the full conspiracy. How much prison time do you think 9 different fraud cases across multiple states would get you? Tyler was quiet for a long moment, staring into his drink. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but I want immunity. That's not up to us, but cooperation usually goes a long way. We spent the next 2 hours in Tyler's hotel room, recording his full confession on my phone. He detailed the entire operation, how they'd select targets, how they'd research their backgrounds, how they'd craft the perfect sob stories to extract maximum sympathy and money. It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation, and Brooke had been the star pupil. She was scary good at it, Tyler admitted. She could become whatever a guy needed her to be, the perfect girlfriend, the damsel in distress, the victim who just needed saving. She studied people like a scientist. How did she study me? Social media, mostly. Your friends, your family, your work. She spent weeks learning about you before she ever approached you at that charity event. The charity event where we'd met, even that had been a setup. She knew you were a nurse, knew you had a savior complex. She researched the hospital, found out about your brother's drinking problem, learned about your ex-girlfriends. By the time she introduced herself, she knew exactly which buttons to push. I thought back to our early conversations, how perfectly Brooke had seemed to understand me, how quickly we'd connected. It had all been an act, performed by an expert who'd done her homework. What about the abuse allegations? Tyler looked uncomfortable. That was new. She'd never done that before. I think she was getting desperate, trying to discredit you before you could expose her. Did you ever hit her? Give her those bruises she showed our friends? God, no. Brooke did that herself. She was thorough. The image of Brooke deliberately injuring herself to frame me was disturbing, but not surprising. She'd shown herself capable of anything. Mason and I drove back to Denver that night, Tyler's confession stored safely on multiple devices. We'd also convinced him to call Detective Martinez and arrange to surrender himself to authorities. Think he'll actually do it? I asked as we crossed the Colorado state line. He's scared enough, and he's not as smart as Brooke. He knows he needs a deal. My phone rang as we entered Denver city limits. Detective Martinez. Mr. Collins, we have a situation. Brooke Lawson was arrested an hour ago trying to break into your apartment building. Is anyone hurt? No, but she was carrying some concerning items. Gasoline, matches, a knife. We think she was planning to set fire to your apartment. The woman I'd once loved had been planning to burn down my home, possibly with me in it. Where is she now? In custody. But Mr. Collins, there's something else. She's claiming you threatened her, that this was all self-defense. She's got a lawyer, and they're pushing back hard. I have Tyler Ray's confession, full details of their operation going back 3 years. That's excellent news. Can you come in tomorrow morning? We need to go through everything. I spent the next morning at the Denver Police Department, walking Detective Martinez through Tyler's confession and the evidence Mason and I had compiled. The case against Brooke was now overwhelming. Multiple victims, documented fraud, interstate conspiracy, and attempted arson. This is the most thorough investigation I've ever seen from a civilian, Detective Martinez said. You sure you don't want to change careers? I'm sure. I just want my life back. You'll get it. Ms. Lawson is looking at serious prison time, and the publicity from your blog has made it impossible for her to run the same scam elsewhere. That afternoon, Tyler Ray surrendered to authorities in Las Vegas. His confession corroborated everything we'd suspected about Brooke's operation and provided details on victims we hadn't even known about. The story exploded across social media and local news. Romance scammer arrested after victim's investigation, read the headline in the Denver Post. The article detailed Brooke's multi-state crime spree and credited my documentation with breaking the case open. My phone was ringing constantly now. Reporters, other victims, people who wanted to share their own stories of being conned. I stopped answering calls from numbers I didn't recognize. But one call I did take was from Tom Walsh. Andy, I owe you an apology, a big one. You already apologized. Not for believing her lies, for not trusting you. We've known you for 3 years, and we let a stranger convince us you were someone you're not. That's on us. Tom's words meant more to me than he probably realized. The hardest part of Brooke's betrayal wasn't the money. That could be recovered. It was the damage to my relationships, the way she'd poisoned people's perception of me. We want to make it right, Tom continued. Jennifer and I are organizing a fundraiser to help pay back the money she stole. Everyone she conned wants to contribute. That's not necessary. It is to us. She used our friendship against you, and we want to fix that. 2 weeks later, I found myself at Tom and Jennifer's house for what they dubbed Andy's Justice Party. Everyone Brooke had conned was there, along with friends and colleagues who'd supported me throughout the ordeal. The atmosphere was celebratory, but also reflective. We were all processing the fact that we'd been victims of a sophisticated criminal who'd exploited our best impulses, our desire to help people in need. To Andy, Tom raised his beer, for showing us that sometimes the best way to help people is to expose the people who hurt them. Everyone drank to that. Sarah Chen approached me later in the evening. I owe you a huge apology, Andrew. I said some terrible things. You were protecting what you thought was an abuse victim. I can't fault you for that. Still, I should have known better. You're not that kind of person. None of us are mind readers, Sarah. Brooke was a professional. As the party wound down, I found myself on Tom's back deck, looking out at the Denver skyline. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. This isn't over. I showed the message to Mason, who was standing nearby. Probably Brooke, he said, or someone working for her. Should I be worried? She's in jail awaiting trial, and Tyler's testimony is going to put her away for a long time. I think you're safe. A month later, Brooke Lawson pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted arson. She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to her victims. Tyler Ray received 3 years in exchange for his cooperation. The Brooke Lawson Victims Facebook group had grown to over 500 members, representing victims from across the country. The group had become a support network for people who'd been targeted by romance scammers, and several law enforcement agencies were using it as a resource for ongoing investigations. I kept working at Denver General, saving lives and treating the endless stream of human drama that flows through emergency rooms. But now I had a different perspective on betrayal and trust. I'd learned that some wounds can't be treated with medicine. They require justice. 6 months after Brooke's sentencing, I got a call from Detective Martinez. Mr. Collins, I thought you'd want to know. Brooke Lawson was found lifeless in her cell this morning. I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and something that might have been closure. What happened? Apparent suicide. She left a note. What did it say? Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I hung up and sat in my apartment, processing the news. The woman who'd nearly destroyed my life was gone, and with her, any chance of understanding why she'd chosen to hurt so many people. But maybe that was okay. Some questions don't have answers, and some people can't be saved, not from others and not from themselves. I looked around my apartment, the same place Brooke had once planned to burn down, and felt grateful for everything I still had. My job, my friends, my reputation, my life. She'd tried to take it all, but in the end, the truth had been stronger than her lies. My phone rang. It was Anita from the hospital. Andy, we need you to come in. Multi-car accident on I-70, and we're short-staffed. On my way. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. There were people who needed saving, and I was good at that. It was honest work, helping people instead of hurting them.